Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the, various social pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitch at Andrew J. Polk, and Twitter, Andrew J. Polk and Talk El Paso. Really, either of those names, both, and most of those places, you'll be able to find us as we have our conversation and getting it out there in all of the ways that are most accessible these days. I know that there's some questions about other networks that we may or may not be on, given on demand, interest, etc., accessibility, most importantly, when it comes to having that conversation about the issues that affect us here in the Borderland, because no one else is going to have that conversation, talking about it the way that you and I and everyone else wanting to participate in such a show are going to. A lot of people telling us how we should feel out here, and oh boy, does that end up not quite working out for the most part here. And we have got a lot to talk about today. So just again, it's been one of those very fast-paced weeks already where we got the State of the Union. We have got elections. We've got the impact still being seen in the evolving Ukraine situation. Plus, we have got that next election. And no, I don't mean November. Yes, that is looming, but we've got a number of runoffs that we're going to be getting into. Most of these subjects actually with Chris Babcock of KTSM-TV, breaking down some of those impacts, what can be seen both from the State of the Union, some of the more localized impacts, what I'm drawing down from it anyway, plus what those elections means and what it means that you're going to be able to go back to the ballot box here. And I am very happy to say that my very cautiously optimistic prediction or analysis, because my cloudy crystal ball is cloudier than ever these days. We did actually hit double digits for the voter turnout. According to the unofficial final election results from the El Paso County Election Department, we did actually not even just squeak by. I was checking the results at about 10, a little bit after 10 p.m. last night after our State of the Union coverage here, if you caught that on News Radio 690 KTSM, including the Republican response. I was looking at that, and I was nearly in tears because the results were showing that we were at 9.96%, and I was just thinking, it can't end like this. Come on, you can't do me like that. Thankfully, we actually did surpass that. I was hoping this would be the case, and it eked out that in the final results, now we're at for most of the precincts, about 99+% reporting now. We actually did hit 11.37%. So I'm not exactly popping the champagne here. I'm glad that my very minimum level expectations could actually be met out there. That still does mean, just to put it in perspective, that basically 1 in 10 registered voters in El Paso County actually went out to the polls here. And with our long-ish road coming up here of more runoffs, and then, of course, even special ballots, not sure if we're going to have any of those in our area, but we've definitely got runoffs coming in a number of races, kind of the way you can consider last night, except for the pass-through races, of which there was still a disconcerting amount of. There was kind of a mixed bag for incumbents. We'll get into that more here, but sort of at the top of the ballot went pretty well for the ones that you expected to do well, and then some surprising-ish runoffs and even some upsets when it came down to it, but we'll break all of that down, of course. But, of course, one of the major issues coming out of yesterday, again, along with our coverage, was the State of the Union address that took an interesting span over the course of a relatively short one. I mean, anytime you're listening to someone talk for more than an hour, and it's different there, I will fully argue, because that is one uninterrupted speech. And there were more, I mean, they don't take commercial breaks in the State of the Union. We brought that to you commercial free, of course, here on our air. And went clocked in, I think, just over an hour once we got past the kind of initial introduction and applause and all of that. So there was a lot to get into there. John Browson saying that there were actually several races that were competitive. Not as many as I would have liked to have seen, but I guess it does help if they're not all just pass through. again, I have not been able to find a good answer if that ficus project is still active anywhere in the country. That was the project that for all of these uncontested races where someone would be, as long as they didn't essentially stop breathing ahead of the election, they were going to be the candidate, or even just pass through entirely. More than a couple of those in our area, unfortunately, including on my local ballots, but more contended than that. I want to say there was some particular energy and surprisingness within, in fact, some of those races we've been focused on, including the county commissioners. See, again, all those results and such coming up here, but it's going to be somewhat of a complicated system. I believe we've got to get that primary runoff election going on by May now. So we got a little bit of time to consider it. We'll probably be doing some more coverage as, well, we can stand about those races that are going to be towards that. So we got some headlines coming up for you about who is going to be on those ballots. And to my understanding, you do have to stick with the primary ballot that you voted on in your partisan race. If you vote a Democrat, got to stick Democrat. If you vote a Republican, got to stick Republican with this one. No switcheroonies when it comes to the primary ballot, because of course it's a partisan one, and you do check your box and make your selection when you go to the polls there of which one you are declaring at. So it's not totally a closed primary, but you call your shot essentially when it comes down to it. So we've got races up and down the ballot that are going to be on there. But just as a quick note before we get into our further coverage about it on the State of the Union, the course of it is, I'm sure has been noted by many others here by this point today, but as it seemed to me, starting off with an interesting unity moment about Ukraine, of which there was, I was watching or not watching our coverage here on radio, so I wasn't looking too much on the video feed there because, well, then we're radio and we deal with that. It did seem like there was a decent amount of unity, and then it took kind of a turn towards that, about that for that first quarter of the speech, when it then went into more domestic and policy and, well, partisan agenda, particularly referencing parts of the previous administration and movement on things such as taxes and the Build Back Better agenda, the infrastructure bill, etc. And then some surprising hitbacks even at seemingly the president's own party, particularly in reference to certain things such as defund the police. But we're going to be getting into a lot more in that here. Again, we're going to be joined by Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV in a pre-recorded interview a little bit earlier today, breaking down what can be seen from the potential local impacts from those points. And there wasn't a whole lot of in-depth policy positions being brought out of this speech. It is kind of a omnibus kind of thing. You got to touch on everything that you might potentially want to do so. It's a statement of purpose, I guess might be a way I think about it when it comes to the State of the Union and what goes into it. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a complicated technical document, but I would have liked to have heard a little bit more when it comes to, specific provisions that you're talking about, particularly when it comes to things like, border security, and that real interesting point about defund the police, or rather the pushback on it from the president's own mouth. So we're going to get into all of that and more here. Another jam-packed show with you. A lot of races, surprising, not surprising, and even upsets in our local area when it comes to that ballot. We'll be breaking down all of that for you here with those numbers and such. So stay tuned. We're going to take that first break here of the hour, but we got you locked in for 2 hours here, 4 to 6 p.m. as we are here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Taking calls a little bit later, probably after we're done talking with Chris. So stay on the line there and tuned in there, really. And Catherine Cordry, unhappy with the president's agenda. Well, we'll talk about what he has put forth here coming up here when we're talking with Chris. So stay tuned. We'll talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Watch for a stalled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, I-10 westbound at Hawkins. Another disabled vehicle blocking the right shoulder, I-10 eastbound at Mesa Street. I-10 eastbound at Lee Trevino, stalled vehicle blocking that right side, stay left. And slow and go traffic on the 10 westbound between Wrestler and Thorne, and on the east side of the 10 between Artcraft and Thorne. It's a 5-minute delay. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters.
Before your day is done, Brake Masters has already helped thousands of people get back to their families safely. Get your vehicle in Brake Masters shape. Download coupons at brakemasters.com. Only then can you say your day is done.
Brake Masters.
We give you an honest break.
Hi, I'm Scotty Clark from Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing. Did you know that about 70% of the heat transfer in your average home is through the ceiling? What that means is no matter what type of air conditioning system you have, insulation will make your home more comfortable. Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing has the ability to install closed cavity insulation, which can dramatically improve the performance of enclosed patios and converted garages. So call Scott Heating, Cooling, and Plumbing for a free estimate at 595-4529.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
A nefarious murder plot, a jealous brother, and the most secretive nation on the planet. Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince, is the podcast that dives into the motives behind the 2017 assassination of the oldest son of North Korea's first dictator, Kim Jong-il.
In North Korea, as in the mob, it's business. It's not personal. When somebody challenges you, that challenger must be eliminated.
Listen to Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Can you ship out that order to the branch in Savannah?
Yep, it's got bananas.
No, Savannah! Savannah!
Yeah, I'm also gonna add some strawberries.
You know, maybe instead of giving everyone their own personal blenders to make smoothies at our desks, they should have just ordered food through Easy Cater.
Oh, sorry, Jill, I can't right now. Gotta ship that order out to Savannah.
Some food just doesn't work at work, but Easy Cater just does. Food for work, on time, and as ordered. From over 82,000 restaurants. Order 24/7 at easycater.com.
Kids dream big. Protect your child's dreams by keeping them healthy. If your son or daughter is age 11 or 12, the American Cancer Society recommends giving them the HPV vaccine to help prevent HPV cancers later. Learn more at cancer.org/dreambig.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. So, 2 major topics we are focused on here today, and of course the local impacts that can be seen from them. State of the Union and elections. So, I was able to catch up a little bit earlier today with Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. We hear him off and on our air for a while. Originally had that plan for an immediate response show with the local analysis after the State of the Union last night. Yeah, that had to get the kibosh put on it because we made it through the show yesterday, but the amount of coughing would have been uncomfortable to continue on. So we're muddling through as best we can, getting better, don't worry there. But was able to catch up with him today to break down some of those impacts. Some of the major things I was looking at primarily, what does it actually mean here? Border security and that defund the police were 2 of the primary ones, but curious to know what you think. One of the better ways to put your 2 cents in during the show here is going to be over on the Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, facebook.com/Talk El Paso is the main page where the Skeptic Squad lives. So we also got people chiming in over on YouTube and the other channels as well. So we'll bring up more here. But again, that conversation I was able to have with Chris and his standpoints and, well, his thoughts on it. John Browson, bring up those Beto voters. We're definitely going to talk about that and a whole lot more. So here is that interview with Chris. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for the invite back. Yeah, glad to be here.
Absolutely. Been a minute since we checked in with you. And of course, we have had the confluence of events over these past couple of weeks. I've long had the contention. It feels like things are happening faster. And last night particularly feels like proof in the pudding of that. So much going on. I mean, we had elections, we had State of the Union, and we've got the Ukraine situation overarching all of it. So talking about primarily those first 2 topics here, State of the Union and elections here. So, of course, we had Joe Biden doing his first presidential address there before the combined session of the House and Senate. And starting off, of course, with Ukraine topics and issues on that, getting kind of a almost referred to by some pundits as kind of a unity moment coming in that then quickly went into, and not even just single-party partisanship, but kind of slapping back at both sides of the aisle, the extreme portions of it anyway.
Yeah, I think really what President Biden did last night was go back to his days, in the Senate where he would be able to work with both sides and really both sides of the aisle when things weren't going right. So yeah, we did have those get out of your seat and applaud moments, and I was, pleasantly surprised that both sides did get up and give the president his due, regardless of how they had felt going in, especially providing that united face for the Ukrainian issues. But having him really address and touch on some of the bigger issues that we've got going on in the country and with the Democrats at times, I think that is indicative of where he's going to go after after the midterms have now kicked off officially.
Oh, yeah, the midterms are in full swing here, and we'll definitely be getting into those here as well with some of the results and, what can be seen from that and the immediate next round of voting that's coming from it. But more specifically, there were two major points. I mean, there was a lot to go in from the State of the Union, and I'm sure a lot of our other hosts have gotten into some of the details and nitty-gritty as it comes to the real local impacts that we might be seeing out of some of these priorities set during the State of the Union. Of course, healthcare, nursing homes, those are some of the aspects that I know there's been some concern about that locally as well as nationally, but specifically local issue is mention of border security, did make a mention of wanting to secure the border. Not a whole lot of policy discussion attached with that as opposed to some of the other efforts. And of course, that led to some chants within the chamber of build the wall, which I would be very surprised if this administration goes anywhere towards that as a goal. But still, putting that as a priority within this fairly condensed speech. I mean, this one had clocked over just over an hour by my reckoning. So for that to even make the cut here was mildly surprising to me.
It was rather fast. We're talking about just how quickly it went by and how many things they said he was jumping from topic to topic, which by the rules, that's what the State of the Union is. You can't just dwell on one thing. You've got to address as much as you can. So I think in this case, yeah, the border is going to play a big part. And again, he's in an interesting position having to go against what the Trump administration, previous administrations have done on the border, and really appeasing the Democratic wing wanting a better wall. It's just such a simple statement, but there's so many nuances there that, again, I don't think we're going to see much more wall other than what's being produced now. I think you're going to see more of a technology-based approach to it, sensors and remote cameras and drones and things of this nature, and a boost into the manpower. I think that's we've got the wall right here with us. I think we're going to start looking toward the outskirts of the country now, Arizona, the Rio Grande Valley, to see how they're going to approach those challenges.
And of course, we do have that section right here that has not been addressed either by previous federal efforts or even by the Texas statewide efforts because, well, it falls in New Mexico for the most part, that part right across the river, basically around Mount Cristo Rey, which does present its own challenges here. So just quoting directly from it, what was said during the State of the Union, that is, if we are to advance liberty and justice, we need to secure the border and fix the immigration system. We can do both. At our border, we've installed new technology like cutting-edge scanners to better detect drug smuggling. We've set up joint patrols with Mexico and Guatemala to catch human traffickers. We are putting in place dedicated immigration judges so families fleeing persecution and violence can have their cases heard faster. And then his final, if you went on for a little bit longer, but so those are some kind of the policy coming out of it. But we saw, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas come back in recent weeks and calling for greater resources focused primarily on, the actual staffing and manpower aspects of this. So not quite as much of a focus coming out of this segment. I mean, basically a paragraph dedicated to this out of that, again, just over an hour speech here. So be very curious to see what this might mean going forward in actual implementation. Again, doesn't seem like there, even though, again, there was that build the wall chant that came out of the chamber, would be floored if this administration moved anywhere near that. Seemed like they, at best, maybe the virtual wall or digital wall, though that's a different local phrase, might be implemented out of this.
I got to believe that looking forward, that when you look at the way the money's going to be spent, it's got to go to technology and manpower, and as you say, boots on the ground. As it stands right now, our Border Patrol is doing a heck of a job. Mm-hmm. I mean, they're overworked. They're in these different areas, out the Boot Heel, out over by Fort Hancock, and they're interdicting, these migrants. They're getting the drugs. It's just there's so many of the migrants coming over and so much that being pushed across the border that, a wall, again, you can climb over it with a ladder, or you can fly over it with a drone. So that's what I think they're having to combat right now. And going forward, let's face it, America, it has that type of a challenge. We'll be able to solve and with better use of our manpower.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV, talking about the State of the Union primarily here. We'll also be focusing, of course, on some of the election results here. The other major point that I guess has come up here locally on our air anyway, and has been kind of a current going on since, summer of 2020, really, with the BLM protests and everything that came out of those calls and cases. So we did both see that as kind of trying to weave a fine line out of this administration between Democrats and Republicans with the priorities with the border security. He gave pretty much a rebuke to the progressive wing of the Democrat Party when he said, on topics of justice, furthermore, he said, let's not abandon our streets or choose between safety and equal justice. We should all agree the answer is not to defund the police. The answer is to fund the police, fund them with resources and training. They need to protect our communities. And, of course, this came in the circumstance of which there was, of course, we aired the Republican response to this, and that line kind of got spiked in the Republican response there because that got brought up and apparently not adjusted there. But then we also saw a progressive response happening at the same time with, I believe it was Rashida Tlaib giving the response afterwards on that as well. So almost seemingly aimed toward that wing of the party with that kind of a statement.
Yeah, and again, it's been the third rail for the Democrats because defund the police was so quickly picked up, amid the crises that we had. But what was missed in it was not defunding the police completely, but reallocating some of those funds to first responders, mental health, things of that nature. And I think Biden really staking out that territory and making the point, we're going to back law enforcement, which is, it's a basic tenet of both parties to really look at that law and order, back the blue, make sure that we have the basics taken care of in as far as making sure public safety is paramount. And then properly fund the police so, your first responder, if there's somebody out there that's in a mental health crisis, doesn't show up by himself with a weapon where he has to use it, but has somebody, at least if not in the unit, somewhere nearby that can help de-escalate the situation.
Which I also want to point out, we do have a pilot program operating like that locally, which is another reason I wanted to bring this up as one of the more important, probably local impacts out of all of this. I mean, again, a lot of priorities came out of the State of the Union speech, a lot to be dissected, but we do actually have a pilot program operating within our area currently. We've had previous interviews on this, as a matter of fact, talking about that pairing of mental health professionals with law enforcement officers to try to achieve that, which does, of course, come along the idea of maybe evaluating how resources are being used, but going very much against, kind of as has been previously stated, the just flatline idea of defund the police, even if there has been some argumentation, of course, that, well, it's not a totally remove the department, but reevaluate the policies. But there have been more than a few within that kind of, shouting match saying that, no, that means all of it gone. So, again, it was very interesting to see the president take the time, even if it was another minor point, one of the more probably impacting ones, at least in the political debate as this goes forward, within his own party.
Yeah, and again, it's such the stance is so polarizing. When you hear it, it's not one of those situations you can solve with a bumper sticker statement,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. As most things are, but they often get boiled down to that in the rhetoric. Anyway, again, guest right now is Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. We got to take the next break right now. Coming out of the break, we're going to stick with him and talk more about our local election result. A mixed bag for incumbents. Pretty good at the top of the ballot and a lot of runoffs or even upsets being looked at the bottom and local races on the ballot. So we'll be back with that here in just a second. Chris, stay with us. We'll be back with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to your KFOX 14 News Update. I am Robert Olguin. The matchup for Texas governor has been set. Former El Paso Congressman Beto O'Rourke will face off against incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott in November. Today, both candidates highlighted key factors in their campaigns. Abbott says he's focused on the state's economic success. O'Rourke says he wants to make sure that voters have access to the ballot box in Texas and that women can protect their reproductive rights. A 59-year-old man was arrested for setting an apartment complex on fire in central El Paso. That fire was reported Monday at 1:45 a.m. on the 3800 block of Harrison Avenue. Fire crews evacuated the apartment complex as they put out the flames. El Paso police arrested Antonio Salas Medrano following the fire. He's been charged with arson. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. It's definitely been a warmer day today. Feels more like spring out there, and well, with all the sunshine, we are going to continue to see those warmer days leading into our Friday. However, come Friday, we will also begin to see increasing winds and the return of some patchy blowing dust. So it is definitely going to feel a lot more like spring before a couple cold fronts bring more changes to the area.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
Haiti was already the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but earthquakes, hurricanes, and COVID have made life even more difficult for families. You can help rebuild Haiti with Compassion International by texting the word radio to 97646.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness, modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
Haiti was already the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, but earthquakes, hurricanes, and COVID have made life even more difficult for families. You can help rebuild Haiti with Compassion International by texting the word radio to 97646.
This report is sponsored by Compassion International.
I adopted Bento in 2010 from a shelter. A lot of people know him as Keyboard Cat.
That's just one adoption story that started at a shelter. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
KTSM-AM El Paso is News Radio 690, an iHeart radio station. News Radio 690, KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Welcome back here to Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the Free and Reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various streaming pages, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Joined here again on the phone with Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. Chris, thanks for sticking around with us.
Hey, no problem. I enjoy being back with you guys.
Absolutely. We have some various plans that have shifted a bit to have you back on to talk about some of these much confluence of events that we've absolutely been dealing with here. And so some of what we're looking at, we talked about last segment, the State of the Union and some of the local impacts of it. A whole lot more to get into here, but just some of the bright line items for me. And so we also, of course, in this confluence of events, had elections coming to their culmination last night. I mean, that whole my favorite time of the year, but we're also not done with it by a long shot, both with the eye towards, of course, the November elections and a number of runoffs that are being looked at here. But that's not the whole story, of course. We are looking at, the way I'm putting it, is a mixed bag for incumbents, better for them at the top of the ballot, and, well, getting worse or even upsets happening towards the bottom of the ballot. And so just the ones that people care the most about, who is going to be the gubernatorial candidates, and it's coming down pretty much as people expected when it comes to, well, what that challenge is going to be come November.
Yeah, I think this went pretty much according to script. The challenge from the far right of the Republicans really didn't do as much damage as maybe people had thought. It did cause, Abbott to run some more ads than he probably might have liked to that were generic and just shoring up his border security tinge. But, for Beto, I think it was just exactly the night he expected. The other 3-4 candidates weren't able to get there. But again, moving forward, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because really Governor Abbott has already shown his hand. You've already painted your opponent as a gun-grabbing, open borders, tax everybody liberal. Now you got 6 months. Now what do you do? I mean, you've got to be able to come out and really challenge those middle-of-the-road voters beyond the name calling. What are you going to do? And for Beto, it's an opportunity for him to really redefine himself to that middle part of the audience, which still exists out there in the rural areas, in some of the different areas of Texas, that he did pick up more votes this time. So he's reaching that audience, especially in South Texas. Now, how do you go beyond that and really move forward?
Oh, absolutely. Here, and for those that were not looking as obsessively at the results as we were here, Greg Abbott statewide, according to the unofficial final election results, was looking at about the pretty, solid territory here, 66% of the vote. The next closest one being Allen West with 12.3, and then Don Huffines with 12%. Chad Prather coming in next at 3.8, and then a bunch of also rans kind of along that. Rick Perry, not that Rick Perry. This race's Rick Perry with 3.2, and then just trailing off after that. So not a it's not quite the next race we're going to talk about here, but a commanding and pretty affirming of his leadership lead for Governor Greg Abbott. Then on the Democrat side of things, O'Rourke, landslide is almost an understatement here when it comes to this ballot. 91.3% of the Democrat ballot across the state. The next closest one being Joy Diaz at 3.2%. No one even breaking double digits against him here. Weakly surprising, even if the final note and tally was a little bit, honestly, more unbalanced than I thought it might be.
And I don't think really the opponents on the Democratic side had any sort of cohesive message to go against Beto. I mean, you don't want to go against the top of the ticket in your own party by, picking up any of the rhetoric that the other side's using. But by the same token, they didn't really define themselves. And I think, on the Republican side, everybody knew where you stood. These Democratic candidates really didn't have any sort of, platform to go up against Beto. So, it's the Beto show at 91%.
Absolutely. And again, how that will then play out. I mean, I did not really hear, even from the governor's visit to town or any of the ads he's been running either on our air or on other local stations, even a mention of the name of an opponent, maybe in a statement or two coming out of his office. But in terms of publicity, barely even mention them, pretty squarely setting the governor up as a run against the president primarily, and then kind of also Beto kind of as a proxy of the current administration. There's the way it's been painted, and I expect that to fully carry through. So that's the top of the ballot, and then we get into that more mixed bag for incumbents, specifically Ken Paxton, Texas Attorney General, facing a runoff from his own party here, being predicted, at least by Texas Tribune and others now, as going to be against George P. Bush, who we have previously had on our air as well, the, I guess now former Texas Land Commissioner, or is he still technically in place? I don't have to double check that, but in any case, he is going to be going up against that Ken Paxton within the next month or so in that runoff election, with Eva Guzman coming in next at 17.5% and Lou Gohmert at 17%. Ken Paxton failing to make that 50% mark, getting a 42%, and George P. Bush with 22, just out of 23% there. So that's the race we're looking at there going forward. We expect that to probably ramp up as we head again into now that runoff.
Yeah, and again, party versus party, you got to realize, what is he going to do to get to Paxton that hasn't already been done? I think that when you look at the way the actual his past kind of played into it. A lot of the polls said that the voters on the Republican side really didn't care. They were looking at what he was doing currently and his campaign against some of the quote-unquote overreach of the federal government or the dereliction of duty for the federal government, and that spoke to voters. I think that maybe the dilution of George P. Bush's the other two that were running the race maybe hurt him a little bit, but now it's going to be a focus on one-on-one. And now we're going to see a little bit more of what George P. Bush stands for instead of just running that second place campaign.
I mean, I still think there'll probably be a decent amount of focus on the wrongs of the current Attorney General administration, but he definitely has to come up with a little bit more of what I would do different or instead, as opposed to just Paxton is a bad guy kind of thing. Also, would be remiss to mention that Dan Patrick, the next top of the ballot there, handily winning his bid for renomination with a 74.8%. No one else, even within shouting distance, not even in double digits against him there. On the Democrat side of that, are looking at a run-up between the top of the major candidate there, Mike Collier, 41.5%, and then Michelle Beckley with a 30.3%. So that one will be another runoff coming up on this ballot here, but that's enough for some of the very top of ballot races. Do want to, of course, touch on some of our local election races. So this one, actually, for most people, the congressional race is probably at the top of their ballot. Looking at locally, we are seeing that when it comes down to the Texas 16th congressional district, the one currently held by Congresswoman Veronica Escobar, looking at a handy victory there, about just shy of 88% versus 12% for DMB de Ruiz Montañez Berrios, who we, of course, both had on our air here, and a bit of a challenge, but not coming, anywhere close. Another almost beyond landslide victory there. So that will be going straight forth through the ballot there on November, of course, going against then Irene Amendares Jackson on the Republican side because she did not have an opponent within this primary process. But then there were some other local ones that we had some voting going on. But then within the Texas 23rd congressional district, we saw that there was, again, another decent night for, incumbents, so to put it, because there was pretty handily in favor of the incumbent there, Tony Gonzalez, coming in, getting straight past any primary or runoff challenges from this primary for him.
Yeah, again, a very solid night for him, and really, it's that length of the district that really counts. Doesn't really touch too much on El Paso, but you really, I hate to say, you don't need it. He had his base back east of us, and that's what propelled him through fairly easily.
Yeah, him getting at just shy of 78%. Next closest being Alma Arredondo Lynch at 15.3%, both of whom we did have on our air. Alia Garcia Ureste coming in at just under 7%, who we had reached out to ahead of the election here, but never heard back from here. On the Democrat side of the ballot, nominee projected to be John Lira, beating out the other Democrat potential there, Priscilla Golden, 56% to just shy of 44%. So those are the major top of ballot races here on the, depending on which way you were voting on here. But then a little bit more interestingly, once we get down to, some of the county commissioner races, some of the more, contested ones, I guess you could say, we did see that there is going to be runoffs on both sides of the ballot there as well, because current county commissioner for precinct 4, Carl Robinson, not beating out the runoff there.
I think all of the local races really, and kudos to you for calling it. It did get to double digits. I was in single digits. I thought we were looking at 8% turnout maximum. We did surpass that. But when you have such a low turnout, it then becomes almost like a prom king, prom queen type of voting. How good is your friends network? How much money did you spend in your neighborhood? And I think when you look at the opponents in these local in the county commissioners races, it really fell to that, and that's why you have a lot closer margin in the local ones. Because really, if you're not going to get to 23-24%, a quarter of the registered voters, it's going to be the people who know you and will back you up at the polls, and that's exactly what happened. And you've got these margins of 300, 800, maybe 1,100 votes in between. Yep. And that's exactly where you're going to be at for the rest, for even the runoff.
Yeah, about right around 350 between, actually, I was mistaken here. Carl Robinson actually technically coming in second for his own primary race, County Commissioner Precinct 4 here. Sergio Coronado coming out on top of that with 3,700 votes versus Carl Robinson just shy of 3,400 votes here. So that will be going to that runoff there. Carl Robinson coming in second to that, but as no one beat 50% of the vote there. Sergio Coronado 38%. Carl Robinson just shy of 35%. That will be going to that next runoff. Dorothy Sissy Bird coming in at 27%. So that's going to be going to a runoff. And then there was a very similar kind of situation when it came to then on the, I believe, the Republican side of the ballot. Of course, we interviewed all of those candidates ahead of the election there because, well, kind of wanted to. Looking at there, Blanca Trout with the narrow lead. You want to talk about those narrowness of the vote totals here. Blanca Trout with a 37.5%. The next closest being David Adams with a 37.2%. Literally, the difference here about, let me do my bad math at the moment. We're looking at approximately, if I'm right, 15 votes in between them. So them going to the runoff there, Victor Navarrete coming in with just shy of 18%, and then Adam Fatuch coming in about 7.5% there. So looking at runoffs on either side of that local primary ballot.
Yeah, once you get rid of the third place and fourth place runners in those markets, now you're looking at to see who you can convert over. Again, your backers are going to back you regardless. How are you going to reach out to those people who got 12, 14, 15% that took away from your possible margins of getting that 50+1? And that's the audience you're moving forward. But again, it's a runoff. You don't have draws from anybody else. Are they going to show up in May? What's going on in May? The pretty weather, the graduations, baseball, soccer. Are they going to turn out to vote? That's the big wild card. And yet they're going to still spend these money for the flyers and the mailers. And really, you're only talking again, 15 votes here, 300 votes there.
Yeah.
Again, it's similar to a large high school. You're not going to have that big of a population voting, but you're going to have to spend a lot just to get those last few votes.
Oh, absolutely. And so whatever, we've been talking a bit about the campaign finance numbers and what that means, and what they've got left in the tank will probably have a significant impact here. So specifically, we're looking also at the state rep District 79, and that was one where the incumbent fared the worst within this local ballot anyway, because we did see actually the replacement now on this primary Democrat ballot of the incumbent for District 79, Art Fierro, with Claudia Ordaz Perez. She winning that 65% over Fierro's 34, just shy of 35%.
Yeah. I think it came as a surprise to a lot of people, but it was the confrontation that we thought it was going to be because of the redistricting. And again, both parties having very, very good backing, and to have to come to this head, this really, at one time the partners, or one time you're working with these people, and now your district's gone. It became very contentious, and you gotta think that those people who actually donated to both of the candidates, if that really hurt, the discovery of some Republican money in this race at the late, the last 4 or 5 days.
That, and of course, the major statewide campaign that was targeting specifically Art Fierro in this race, among some other specifically targeted state house districts. Ordaz Perez probably benefiting from that as well. So there'll be a whole lot more to go here. But again, it is important to note that this is one of those races that this will then go through to the election, because there was no Republican opponent on the other primary ballot. So this is, in essence, the election right there.
Yeah, exactly. This was the one, and again, the donations to both campaigns really reflected how critical this race was, and pouring all this money into basically what I looked at it as almost a runoff. The first time around, it's going to be, you have these experienced legislators. Who do you want better moving forward? And Ordaz Perez got the nod over Fierro.
Yep. So that's just kind of an overview here, because there's a whole lot more to get into here. And again, more races being set up now for that runoff primary ballot. So we've been joined right now by Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. Chris, thanks very much for taking the time to speak with us about some of these issues, some of these races, State of the Union, etc., with us here today.
No, I appreciate the invite, and as always, I'm available to y'all whenever you need me.
Absolutely here. Okay, so we got to take that next break right now. Coming out of the break, we'll go ahead and open up those phone lines, because a whole lot to talk about here. So if you wanted to call in, that number to do so, 915-544-5876. 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound and westbound seeing some slowing between Artcraft and Wrestler on both sides, about a 5-minute delay. Watch for an accident Fred Wilson Avenue, westbound at Alabama, Gateway Boulevard, northbound at East Yandell. An accident just reported there, a minor delay. Another accident reported Alameda Avenue, just east of Piedras. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Print and Marketing Services help small business print big with wide format signs and banners. Right now, get $10 off custom printed signs, banners, and posters when you spend $50 or more. Offer ends 3/26. Visit staples.com/signage for details. Staples, the working and learning store.
The Ridiculous Crime Podcast proves that true crime isn't always about mayhem and murder. Sometimes it's just silly. Take a deep dive into the absurd side of criminality with tales of stupid capers and idiotic cons that are 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous.
16-year-old Max Wade decides to steal the yellow and black Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. The owner? You know him as Guy Fieri.
Listen to Ridiculous Crime on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
Covered by Medicare and Medicaid? Well, El Paso Health Plus is the plan for you. As a local Medicare Advantage plan, we can offer our members more. Call us at 833-742-3125 or EPHmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus.
Whoever said the more the merrier sure wasn't in charge of hiring new employees, because the more unqualified candidates you have for a job, the more difficult your hiring can be. And that can make the process, well, not so merry for you. Thankfully, there's ZipRecruiter, which you can try right now for free at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter's powerful technology finds the right candidates for your job. But unlike other sites, ZipRecruiter goes deeper. ZipRecruiter matches people with people, and you can personally invite your top choices to apply, because the perfect hire is more than a list of qualifications. It's an individual. ZipRecruiter makes hiring the right person easy, and that'll keep you and everyone else very merry.
4 out of 5 employers who post on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. So try ZipRecruiter for free today at ZipRecruiter.com/radio. That's right, free. Once again, that's ZipRecruiter.com/radio. ZipRecruiter.com/radio.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks again to Chris Babcock with KTSM-TV. Question about why we're talking with him a little bit earlier. I mean, if you haven't been a long time listening to the show, we used to have a little bit more common interactions with him as a part of our news partners over at the El Paso Herald-Post, but also just a good check-in with some of the major local issues we're dealing with. I think when it comes to things like elections and State of the Union here, so thanks to him here. And we are going to be talking a lot more about that. Having to make this a short-ish segment here today. We do have those phone lines open already. We'll start taking those, probably next segment here at this point here. But if you want to call in and get on the line, get in line. 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. A lot of comments coming in here. RJ over on the YouTube channel, unimpressed with Carl Robinson, as apparently voters were a bit putting him in second place in his own primary, but of course that going to the runoff here. And in case I misspoke, which I may have, or at least misrepresented, we are looking for that runoff election May 24th. So we got another campaign season coming down here. And of course, there's a whole lot more races that are coming into that. One I also realized I was slightly remiss on at least mentioning was that of County Commissioner District Precinct 2, that of the one currently held by David Stout. He was not able to avoid the runoff there either, getting 43% and change, but coming in strong behind him, Judy Gutierrez with 39.6 and change percent there. So going to another runoff there as well. So county commissioners, surprisingly enough, contested races and not a great time for incumbents so far. So we will certainly be checking in on those races as we get closer to that. So we got May now coming up. I am 90% certain we're not going to have any other special elections in our area, but we'll see what happens between now and then. And then, of course, all of this leading up towards the November election, except, of course, for County Commissioner 2, this runoff will essentially decide that race because there is no Republican opponent on there, barring there being any further, independent candidates and such. We've got more interviews coming up for you on all of those points, by the way. Starting next week, be talking about those once we're kind of clear of this election and the smoke around it. We'll be talking more with those 8 other candidates, the ones that either came through uncontested or will now be challenging through on the other side of the ballot. Plus, of course, those that are hoping to bring their challenges through further. But, the technicalities get interesting. We'll break that all down here. But just to finish off RJ's comment, saying sharp as a butter knife, and then clarifying specifically the handle of the butter knife. So more comments coming in through there. Glenn Stewart saying Beto won't be installed by Brandon. We count real votes here. Besides that, he is ungood for Texas. RJ also coining a phrase there for him. Toke him if you got him. Give me your gun, Beto here. Got a lot more comments that we'll certainly get into here after this break, but I got to hit that top of the hour as new. So again, if you're wanting to call in, adding your 2 cents on the show here about all of this, we've gone through a lot and there's a whole lot more to get to. The number to do so is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound and westbound seeing some slowing between Artcraft and Wrestler on both sides, about a 5-minute delay. Watch for an accident, Fred Wilson Avenue, westbound at Alabama, Gateway Boulevard, northbound at East Yandell. An accident just reported there, a minor delay. Another accident reported Alameda Avenue, just east of Piedras. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Susan, it's so great to finally be able to get together again.
Oh, it sure is. And I really appreciate you picking up the bill.
I'm happy to. I've got the extra cash. Since we've all been driving so much more again, I've been using Get Upside, the free gas app that pays you cash back for every gallon of gas you buy.
Wait a minute. Are you saying you actually get paid cash when you buy gas with the Get Upside app?
Yes, up to 25 cents a gallon. Cash back every time I buy gas.
Does that actually add up to anything?
I'll make $200 to $300 this year.
Wow, that's serious extra cash. I'm downloading the free Get Upside app now.
Download the free Get Upside app now in the App Store or Google Play to save up to 25 cents a gallon when you buy gas. Use promo code FUEL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's up to 50 cents a gallon on your next fill-up. You can cash out anytime right to your bank, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. Just download the free Get Upside app and use promo code FUEL for a 25 cents a gallon bonus on your first tank. That's code FUEL.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day.
I don't watch television, so I get all my news from you.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
I loved playing high school sports. I loved the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, all the pageantry, and I wanted to keep playing. But I graduated. No colleges called, and neither did the pros. So, to stay close to the game I loved, I decided to become a high school official. You know, a referee. When I played high school sports, I learned the importance of integrity, good sportsmanship, and respect for the rules. Now, as a high school official, I get to help model these same values to others. Maybe the colleges and the pros didn't call, but the kids in Texas did. And now, I'm enjoying the competition, the camaraderie, the bands, the crowds, and all the pageantry of high school sports all over again.
This message presented by the Texas University Interscholastic League.
News on the hour and a half. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook.
President Biden says Russian President Vladimir Putin badly underestimated the West and NATO.
He thought the West and NATO wouldn't respond. He thought they could divide us at home, but he was wrong.
Speaking in Wisconsin, Biden said Putin will be held accountable for the ongoing invasion of Ukraine. He argued Putin's actions are making Russia weaker while the West grows stronger. Biden went to Wisconsin to promote his domestic agenda after his State of the Union address. A city in southern Ukraine is the first to fall to Russia. Ukrainian officials reported Russian troops took the city of Kherson. Russian forces continue to attack Kharkiv, the nation's second largest city, and explosions struck near the capital city of Kyiv. The closing bell is ringing on a good day for Wall Street. Stocks began heading upward after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell testified before Congress for a semi-annual monetary policy update. The positive day comes as oil prices continue to rise due to sanctions being handed down to Russia. At the closing bell, the Dow gained 596 points to 33,891. The Nasdaq gained 220 to 13,752. A federal prosecutor is telling jurors a Texas man lit the match that started the fire at the U.S. Capitol more than a year ago. Lisa Taylor reports.
During opening statements in the first riot case to go to trial, the assistant U.S. attorney said that was the defendant's own words. Guy Reffitt was allegedly armed with a gun as he led the mob into the Capitol. Federal prosecutors say he's a member of the Texas Three Percenters, a far-right anti-government militia.
A group of bipartisan state attorneys general is looking into TikTok's impact on young users. The AGs are investigating if the platform's short video design or promotion to young users negatively impacts their physical or mental health. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy is giving certain healthcare workers more time to become compliant with vaccine mandates. Erin Real reports.
Healthcare workers at facilities covered by the federal rules for Medicaid and Medicare services must obtain their booster shot by April 11th. Staffers in high-risk congregate care settings must now submit proof of vaccination by May 11th. Meanwhile, some Republicans like Senator Anthony Bucco say Murphy didn't go far enough to extend the deadline.
February sales for Ford Motor Company fell by 21% compared to the same period last year. The automaker says they did receive more orders for new vehicles last month. Ford branded vehicle sales were off by 21% and Lincoln sales dropped by 23%. A large South Carolina school system is opening up the purses to draw in new teachers. Scott Kimbler has the details.
Orangeburg County School District is offering sign-on bonuses to newly hired staff, the $3,000 bonus being funded by a federal grant through a partnership with Voorhees College. Certified new-to-district school teachers, media specialists, schools counselors, content area coaches, and interventionists hired on or before September 15th of this year will be eligible. The bonus checks are a hiring incentive at a time when school districts nationwide are seeing teacher shortages.
A pair of Michigan skiers believe they've set the world record for the number of ski resorts visited in 24 hours. Kyle Kelly and Brad Dykstra of West Michigan said they visited 23 resorts across the state to break the previous record of 17 resorts set by a skier in Japan. The men started their record attempt at noon on Saturday and completed it at 11:30 a.m. Sunday. Kelly and Dykstra said they're submitting evidence of their record, including tickets, photos, and video to Guinness to officially have their records certified. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
This report is sponsored by General Dynamics Information Technology.
Are you ready for an unparalleled work experience where you see your impact every day? GDIT is hiring customer service representatives to deliver critical support to the government, impacting the safety and security of our nation. Apply now at gdit.com/careers.
With people getting in shape for summer, I want to let them know my fitness center is more than treadmills and free weights. So I created a radio ad at iHeartAdBuilder.com to spread the word about our yoga and boot camp classes. Now, my business is as healthy as our members.
A custom radio ad from iHeartAdBuilder is the fast, affordable way to drive customers to your business. Put the power of radio to work for you. Get started now at iHeartAdBuilder.com.
Rich is just a really good guy. The term good egg isn't enough to describe him. He's also certified organic and free range. Rich puts the cap back on everything. The toothpaste, the olive oil, the shampoo, everything. He lets his 10-year-old nephew beat him at virtual tennis, even though he can straight up slay his 10-year-old nephew in virtual tennis. When the toilet paper is running low, Rich replaces the roll on the actual holder, not just on the back of the toilet. Rich is texting and driving. Rich, no. What are you doing, Rich? I was just telling everyone how great you are. Texting and driving makes good people look bad. Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
If you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my friends. For my community.
For everyone here. We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies us. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thanks for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or Twitch, Andrew J. Polk. Either of those names, Talk El Paso, Andrew J. Polk. Most of those places you'll be able to find us. Join in, tune in, or participate however you feel open to. Lorenzo Colon commenting right now over on the Facebook. The bad part is a lot of people complained about Beto's bad policies but didn't vote. Again, we hit my, in retrospect, probably still pretty dismal expectations of double digits. Let's consider it like minimum, like base level, like come on, guys. We did it. I mean, congratulations therein, but I'm not exactly popping corks yet when it comes to hope for our continued participation in this. We have got a number of elections coming up now because we've got a runoff coming up in late May, and then, of course, all of that leading towards the general election in November. So it's going to be, it's going to be the year here. That's pretty much what we got coming down to it here. So that's some of our comments coming in over there. The Skeptic Squad alive and well. And more than a little bit of haterade coming in as well. I'm going to choose to take it as a compliment from Epifanio Yanni saying another great interview between two pseudo-intellectuals. I'm glad you think I'm an intellectual. Epifanio there, I think believed mentioning that during our interview with Chris Babcock of KTSM-TV a little bit earlier. Again, just good to have a roundup of the important issues affecting our region coming out of all of this. Of course, there's a whole lot more than we could even get to within that first hour there when it came to the State of the Union speech and everything coming with it. I mean, just off the top of my head, a few more of the impacts likely coming from there, including as there are ramp-ups of forces being deployed to Eastern Europe in not for the conflict in Ukraine, but with an eye towards, what might happen in terms of an escalation were to occur there. We've already heard from some other callers and locals here that there are very likely those from El Paso deployed out there as part of that. So certainly on the mind as we go through all of these situations here. Some talk about gas prices, some talk about inflation, those, of course, having impacts here. But the two we focused on as being a little bit more direct in our area, being border security plus immigration reform, kind of talked about at the same time and more or less the same tenor and focus on it. A paragraph in total within the overall State of the Union speech, a couple of minutes there. With, more once you count the interruption with both the applause and then the build the wall chants, which, again, I'm going to be very, very surprised if this administration actually move forward with that. But then also things like the defund the police. I mean, there's a lot of analysis been going into this. Those are just a couple of the ones that I hit out from there. But some expressing their pleasure or displeasure with some of them. Catherine Cordry saying over on the YouTube, no Beto. But that is, of course, looking like we are going to be seeing that as the election ballot come November because, well, it was pretty much as expected, frankly, because there were some challengers and had some legitimate points there and trying to find those wedge issues between Texas Governor Greg Abbott and his base, but apparently in the end, not successful. And according to that, just bringing up here again, that last gasp campaign finance report that we had talked about as we headed into the election, plenty in the tank left, at least unless was just a total blowout of spending within that last week of the campaign. Probably on the order of about $50 million left in cash on hand for Governor Greg Abbott's campaign, despite having spent up to that point about $15 million. Yeah, so he's got a handy advantage, at least in cash on hand, though the O'Rourke campaign does have just like $6.8 million of cash on hand there. So, and the fundraising, not that far apart. O'Rourke campaign raising just shy of $3 million in this last period, and Abbott campaign raising about $3.8 million themselves there. So whether or not that'll work, well, you tell me if you've been swayed at all by one way or the other, if anyone has changed your mind here. Of course, the politics will tend to shift a bit more towards the center as we head towards down to the general election, with, of course, the interruption of the primaries and the runoffs from it. So we'll see how those goes. I have mentioned that we got those calls in the line here. If you're wanting to call in during the show, adding on your 2 cents, question, comments, concerns, etc., that number to do so is 915-544-5876. 544 KTSM. Right now, we do have Raul in the Northeast on the line here with us right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. I watched President Biden's State of the Union address, and I thought he did great. He dispelled that right-wing lie that he's senile and demented, and not a dotard like Trump's lover, North Korean dictator Kim called Trump. And I've been a public speaker for much of my working career as a trainer and a presenter, and I give President Biden an A for that speech. And I know that most presidents do not write their speeches, and they all have speechwriters. But, and President Biden was not my choice for my Democratic presidential nominee. My preferences were Warren and Bernie. But President Biden is making me feel good that I voted for him. He came across as a content expert, a policy wonk, and he came across as reasonable, measured, and strong at the same time. So unlike his predecessor, who was all braggadocio and buffoonery. But under President Biden, America has experienced a historic economic recovery from a sick country and crash economy that he inherited from Trump, just like the mess that Bush +2 left Obama. Under President Biden's America created 6.6 million jobs, saw 5.4 new small business startups, 5.4 million new small business startups, saw the biggest single one-year drop in the unemployment rate in U.S. history. Real GDP growth was 5.5% for 2021. Trump never averaged over 3%. Americans' disposable incomes were higher in 2021 in real inflation-adjusted terms than they were in 2019 and 2020 under Trump. President Biden passed the largest infrastructure bill in U.S. history, which will create millions of jobs while rebuilding America's crumbling infrastructure. He passed the American Rescue Plan when Americans needed help with COVID. 65% of Americans got vaccinated. Kids are back in school. We no longer have to wear masks. He nominated the first black woman to the Supreme Court. He rebuilt the good relations with our NATO allies that Trump had soured with his public attacks on them. He's rallied the free world to oppose Putin's invasion of Ukraine. Now, since Trump is still very popular among Republicans and has been holding rallies and has hinted that he may run, what enduring policy successes other than a big tax cut for the rich did Trump have?
I mean, if you really want to put that question out there, I'll be happy to put it out there. Lorenzo asking what is being talked about here, but just off the top of my head, or at least policies that were in place and of course have been removed, as that has been the more or less unfortunate current we've seen over the last couple of administrations of coming in and essentially trying to wipe the slate clean, is, I mean, really when you talk about the border, as we kind of focused on here, there was some talk about, again, think about that paragraph that we heard during the State of the Union speech, and a lot of it that we've actually seen put into place has either been, well, really not fully implemented Trump-era policies. We're starting to, maybe with this speech, actually seeing policy put forth, but I mean, we've called for it on this program, and others have said about it, that there has not really been a cohesive policy coming out of this administration in dealing with the southern border. It's been kind of this piecemeal removal of existing policies and then kind of limping back towards them that we've seen, both with Title 42 being there, again, I hesitate to call that a policy, but still a holdover from the Trump administration, less a policy and more a literal line of action of expel everyone, essentially, that shows up at the border. And that, of course, has been expanded on due to the Supreme Court cases on the merits, not so much of the program, but of how it was done away with. That we have seen some further movement ahead of the State of the Union speech by the administration saying that, okay, well, we'll put it into place in a different way or try to remove it a different way to comply with that, essentially. Supposedly back in place, starting within our region. Another way that is definitely something that hits home here. But it was noted by the Republican response specifically that there has not been a visit by top administration level, including the president and vice president, when it comes to actually coming down to even our section of the border, but more broadly the border overall. So that is one enduring policy, I wouldn't say success, but failure to fully remove and renovate, if that was the goal of this administration, I would have to say there. So, I mean, there's a lot more to get into that here. So I thank you for the point in the call. There's a lot more we will get into, and we do have those calls in the line here as well. And more questions coming on over here as well. So we'll get to all that and more. We got to take that first break of this hour right now. But again, phone lines open 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. Question has been asked. We'll put it back out there. What do you feel are the enduring policy successes of the previous administration, particularly juxtaposed with the ones brought up here with the current one? So again, 915-544-5876 after this break.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
We got police and medical headed towards an injury accident, Paisano Drive eastbound at the 110 southbound. Joe Battle Boulevard, southbound south of Vista del Sol at Escanbrenner. There's a injury accident there. Zaragoza could be an alternate. Gateway Boulevard northbound at East Yandell Drive, an accident reported there with a minor delay. And watch for a crash, Fred Wilson Avenue westbound at Alabama. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Brake Masters. Before your day is done, Brake Masters has already helped thousands of people get back to their families safely. Get your vehicle in Brake Masters shape. Download coupons at brakemasters.com. Only then can you say your day is done. Brake Masters.
We give you an honest break.
A nefarious murder plot, a jealous brother, and the most secretive nation on the planet. Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince, is the podcast that dives into the motives behind the 2017 assassination of the oldest son of North Korea's first dictator, Kim Jong-il.
In North Korea, as in the mob, it's business. It's not personal. When somebody challenges you, that challenger must be eliminated.
Listen to Big Brother, North Korea's Forgotten Prince on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hey, Mario Courtney Lopez here. We know life's moments are definitely better together.
And Smart Mouth mouthwash gives us the confidence to always be ready to make the most of these moments.
Whether in studio, on the red carpet, or around the house, having the confidence to get close is amazing.
Our lives are better together with Smart Mouth. Just 2 rinses a day means fresh breath for 24 hours.
Find it at your favorite drug, grocery, or supercenter store, or save 20% at smartmouth.com/radio.
How many of you have pets? Now think about how lucky you are to have such a sweet little pet in your life. But unfortunately, there are countless pets out there that don't have a home to call their own. However, Bob's from Skechers is trying to change that. With every purchase of adorable Bob's footwear, apparel, or pet accessories, Skechers makes a donation to Petco Love. And with your help, we've already saved the lives of over 1 million pets and donated over $7 million. Find Bob's at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, select Petco locations, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
More than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, with more than 11 million family members and friends serving as caregivers. The toll of the disease is monumental, and no one should face Alzheimer's or dementia by themselves. Free help is available 24/7. For resources and support, visit the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org or call the helpline at 800-272-3900. You are not alone.
Next Thursday, you will be caught in an extreme flash flood.
Disasters don't plan ahead, but you can. Talk to your loved ones about making an emergency plan. Get started today at ready.gov/plan. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so. A lot of ways to interact with the show. Of course, we got that phone line open right now, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I sure hope everyone listening out there got their chance to pick up their own nifty I like the locally designed I voted stickers out here showing a cactus and kind of a big downtown star on the mountain thing. I mean, I think it's done by kids here, so I appreciate it for exactly what it is. It's a localized I voted sticker. Hope you all got yours yesterday. Otherwise, what are you doing? What are you doing, guys? Come on, let's get out and vote. We did hit that double digits. I am very thankful of because I look foolish enough as it is half the time here. So we did hit that barely, like 11 and change. So let's call that a good start. I'm willing to call it a good start as long as we do continue on. And again, make your plan to go ahead and vote. I know it may, okay, maybe I'm going a little bit too soon, but it's never too early. Talk about that next election, late May, the 24th, I believe, is going to be the runoff election for the number of the races we are talking about. We got county commissioners races, both sides of the ballot. We do have some of those at statewide races, including attorney general and more, including Texas Land Commissioner, actually, also going to runoffs on more or less both sides of the ballot, if not actually both. So a lot of people coming on here. Some questions also coming about, just local involvement here. Al George over on the Facebook page putting up a question. Can we talk about the Republican Party out in this city? After voting yesterday, I attempted to find not one, not two, but 3 different precinct meetings. Did any actually happen? The question coming there, and some further comments about that. You can go see for yourself here. Lorenzo Colon agreeing with that for the most part and saying that there is very little on the Republican Party of El Paso. Is there any local channels that side the Republican Party? Seems like they take care of the Democrats a lot more. I mean, there's a lot focus in this town. I find that okay, I like people to go vote regardless of affiliation, but I will agree that there is a bit of not level. Okay, to be perfectly honest here, the way I see it is that in the minds of the average voter, the local party is kind of MIA. I mean, you demand someone, pull someone off the street and threaten them not to let them see their families until they answer, who are the party chairs here, unless they've listened to this program, or maybe even then probably couldn't tell you. So that has been an ongoing problem here, and there has been a lot of internal work going on within both parties, but we've had interviews previously with both of, other movements happening outside of it here, and some more comments coming in here, and John Browson making his own point that since most people now vote early, they probably forgot about the precinct meetings. I know I did, so at least you're admitting there. I do appreciate your personal transparency, but I'm curious. Okay, so we got 2 questions out there right now, including this one. What do you feel are the enduring policy successes of the previous administration? And how involved do you really feel with the local party? Curious to know about your responses there. But we got more calls on the line here. That number to call is 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have Andrew on the west side here with us right now. Andrew, thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you. Afternoon. Thank you very much, Andrew, and good afternoon.
Absolutely there. What's on your mind?
Yes, sorry for the gaffe there.
Yeah, no worries.
I did watch the State of the Union address last night, and yes, the delivery was very well. And yes, there was maybe 1 or 2 gaps, but overall, yes, he did have a good delivery. I did want to point out that one of the things that he mentioned was concerning tax breaks for the rich. That never did occur. Actually, more middle-class Americans received more money and did benefit from the Trump tax cuts. Number two, did you notice that he stressed Buy American last night?
Yeah, that has a point that was coming up out of it. Kind of dovetails off our in local investment discussion or the nearshoring that we've seen in our area. But yeah, that was an interesting focus coming out of the many, many policy points out of this speech.
Great. Well, why not? Why does that not include Buy American Energy, oil and natural gas?
You did address that kind of in its own separate point, but I will admit those exact ways that you're talking about it weren't really linked to each other. Absolutely.
Yes, but it seems that, releasing the oil from the strategic reserves is only a Band-Aid on a laceration of an artery. That's my take on that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's a short-term solution at best, and unless production is ramped up, of which, I mean, certain expectations coming out that with gas prices ballooning, we often then see more activity within the even just regional oil fields. And I think I've seen more talk about like job fairs going on in Midland and Odessa, even some local advertising going on for that. So I expect that to happen, but that's also on the order of months out. Would probably really like to see more talk about restarting, I don't know, some of those pipeline constructions, which, okay, I'm just going to put this out there. If he is willing, the president, willing to already kind of slap back at his own party when they are slapping back at him with that, again, that just baffling progressive response to the otherwise Democratic State of the Union speech, yeah, the political calculation there baffles me, as do most things when you start getting to that end of the spectrum. But more specifically, why not look at that then if you're willing to already do some of the slap back and talking about this within, I don't know, terms of strategic solvency of the U.S. oil supply? Just comes to mind.
Well, national security also relies on a strong domestic oil reserve, so we really need to be energy independent again. But I wanted to point out to Raul some of the things that I noticed. Well, during the week on these news broadcasts, you see Biden getting off of the Marine Corps One, wearing a mask, walking alone, and then all of a sudden last night, no mask, giving a lot of hugs and handshakes. So one has to wonder, is this a political move now that elections are going on, now that we're in the midterms?
I think that answer is frankly pretty apparent. Really, when you also look at the current that we've been seeing from state-level governors, New York, all the way to New Mexico, if you want to go right into the backyard here, of governors coming out with, even in some of the headlines locally, surprise announcements that this is, we're doing that now? Okay, cool. We're doing that right now. Okay. And in fact, I think Raul brought that up there as well as his part of, removing and getting rid of the mandates here. That feels a little bit, I'm not going to totally call it gaslighting, but it kind of seems like forget everything that happened right before this moment and let's go with only what's happening right now that I like happening, because it's kind of then overlooking the idea that, okay, why were they in place in the first place? Let's ask that question just real quick. And okay, so now they've removed them, what they did in the first place. Yeah, I hope people's memories aren't that short, but I have a lot of hopes that don't end up being totally filled out.
Yes, that's correct. Now, my last 2 points was this. Well, under the Biden administration, we've seen one of the biggest immigration debacles in history. He himself, running for president, he invited all these people to come into the United States, and I recall him saying, "Come on over, come on in," And last but not least, Beto O'Rourke, folks, just remember, you want to lose your guns, and you want your border opened up again to undocumented individuals. Yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen.
I did like see if I can find it here in the comments. Was brought up, I believe. RJ said it. Toke 'em if you got 'em. Give me your gun, Beto. Here is a phrase that I'm liking as his new campaign slogan. Hope it gets adopted. Certainly.
Well, yeah. Just remember, guys. Look what's happening in the Ukraine. The Ukrainian people, as of the end of February, 10,000 automatic rifles have been issued to private citizens to defend their nation. Like I said before, I wouldn't be surprised if that crazy Putin wants Alaska returned to the Russians.
I don't trust that particular gentleman as far as I could throw him. And given the state of his security, particularly now, I mean, the way he even treats his own staff and cabinet members on literally the other side of a football field size room or the end of a world's longest table. Yeah, you're not getting anywhere near that guy. So let's call it a 0.0 on the measure scale of how far I'm going to be able to chuck him, getting nowhere near him before I get probably tased or anything. And just one further point on that, a nice update I saw today that the Ukrainian, ministry taxes, the tax authority there has let Ukrainians know that if they have seized or, picked up any of the abandoned Russian tactical vehicles, APCs, tanks, any of those kind of things, they do not need to go ahead and claim them on their taxes. So I got at least a couple of people seeing what cheap flights to the Ukraine do look like at this point in time.
Right on. Well, at least they could use them as SUVs after everything's over.
Well, depending on how the mud works out there, bad situations overall there. But again, we'll keep monitoring that situation, and that's maybe a little bit more bit of levity than the situation truly deserves. But hey, it is an interesting juxtaposition when looked at even our domestic policies here. So do appreciate the point in the call. Thank you very much.
Well, my heart goes out to the people of Ukraine.
Absolutely. Slava Ukraini. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You have a good evening. All right. We are due for that next break here right about now. But if you're wanting to call in during the show, a lot of comments coming in here. John Brownston, RJ over on YouTube, James Ratcliffe, Lorenzo Colon, Stephen M. Purdy, and more. We'll get to all of those and more coming out of this break. And again, more calls in the line. That number to do so, if you are so inclined, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. I love the comments. They give me life. We'll get into more of those after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to your KFOX 14 News Update. I am Robert Olguin. The matchup for Texas governor has been set. Former El Paso Congressman Beto O'Rourke will face off against incumbent Republican Governor Greg Abbott in November. Today, both candidates highlighted key factors in their campaigns. Abbott says he's focused on the state's economic success. O'Rourke says he wants to make sure that voters have access to the ballot box in Texas and that women can protect their reproductive rights. A 59-year-old man was arrested for setting an apartment complex on fire in central El Paso. That fire was reported Monday at 1:45 a.m. on the 3800 block of Harrison Avenue. Fire crews evacuated the apartment complex as they put out the flames. El Paso police arrested Antonio Salas Medrano following the fire. He's been charged with arson. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Checking your El Paso freeways, Paisano Drive eastbound at the 110 southbound. There's an injury accident with police and EMS on the scene. I-10 eastbound between Dallas and Patriot Freeway. You're looking at an 8-minute delay. An accident reported Zaragoza and Tierra Este, and an injury accident Alabama and Broadus Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, this is Chief Meteorologist Sandra Diaz. It's definitely been a warmer day today. Feels more like spring out there, and well, with all the sunshine, we are going to continue to see those warmer days leading into our Friday. However, come Friday, we will also begin to see increasing winds and the return of some patchy blowing dust. So it is definitely going to feel a lot more like spring before a couple cold fronts bring more changes to the area.
This report is sponsored by Unbound.org. Right now, there are young people across the world facing a tough choice: continue their dream of education or drop out to help their family put food on the table. You can help change their future in a single moment. See how far your support can go at Unbound.org.
If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, then El Paso Health Plus Medicare Advantage Plan offers great supplemental benefits designed specifically for El Pasoans, such as $3,500 a year in dental benefits, $300 in vision, and a quarterly OTC card with $250 to spend on health and wellness products. Plus, generous benefits for hearing, podiatry, home-delivered meals, and so much more. Plus, our new Get Fit benefit to keep you active and social, as well as our new Healthy Eats program. At El Paso Health Plus, we go the extra mile for our members because this is our home, and our local knowledgeable staff is here to help you get more benefits, more services, more from your health plan. If you are covered by Medicare and Medicaid, call us 833-742-3125 or visit ephmedicare.com. El Paso Health Plus, your local Medicare Advantage plan.
Hey guys, it's Edge Martinez. My family's gathering in the kitchen. It's our favorite place to catch up. Keep germs out. I use Lysol on countertops, tables, and the fridge handle. Nothing kills more viruses on more surfaces than Lysol disinfectant spray. Lysol, what it takes to protect. Use as directed.
NexGard, a Foxalaner, is monthly flea and tick protection that's #1 vet recommended and #1 dog preferred. Use with caution in dogs with a history of seizures or neurologic disorders. Ask your vet or visit nextguardfordogs.com to learn more.
This report is sponsored by the maker of NexGard Afoxolaner, the #1 choice of veterinarians.
Always just minutes away from the latest news around town and around the world.
You need to know what's going on.
News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. A lot on the mind here today. Two main topics, of course, the State of the Union, the local impacts that can be seen therein. I mean, there's a whole lot of policy positions that are definitely going to have an impact in the region. The two major ones on my mind being the border security section of the speech there. What we might see come out of that, I'd like to actually see fuller and firm policy positions coming out of the relevant agencies, but if I would have been holding my breath on that, I would have passed that a long time ago. So we'll see. Plus the whole don't defund the police movement. That was very clearly a slap back at, the wing of his own party. I say that because they're technically both Democrats there happening, and then Rashida Tlaib giving the progressive, I guess, response. We didn't hear that one because it's not the official Republican response, as happens, or opposition party response that happens to any State of the Union here. Just a weird confluence there, but also, of course, elections, those numbers, the runoffs that we're looking at, just to list a few. We do have the Attorney General runoff elections that are going to be coming up, and then locally, both on the two contended, anyway, county commissioner seats, both districts 2 and 4, if I'm not getting my numbers totally wrong here. Yes, those are the numbers, are looking at, on the Democrat side, runoffs there, and then on the one contested Republican side of it, runoffs there as well. So we got a busy election season that is absolutely coming up. So a lot of comments coming in here as well. Calvin Williams, Louis Pinato, James Radcliffe, making an interesting comment here. President Biden, guns don't work against tanks and F-16s. People of Ukraine, hold my vodka. And Al George asked me the question I was chuckling going into the last break there. Did you see the tractor pulling the anti-aircraft gun? I got to ask you which one, because it's happened a couple of times that I've been seeing here. And James Radcliffe actually does bring up a good point about, not totally on the same page with you, about biolabs. And I'm aware of the discussion going around there. I haven't seen anything totally credible from my standpoint. But no one is immune to propaganda. If you think you're immune to propaganda, it probably means that you are accepting more than you realize. Anyway, there's a lot of information, MDM, misinformation, disinformation, malinformation coming out, well, frankly, from all sources. I've often seen in my long trolls on the internet on this issue, a picture being purported to support either side you look at there. So it's important, I think, to look more at overall currents, information coming out from reputable, and I do mean reputable sources. And what that means is not just a source that happens to agree with the standpoint that you espouse and that you like, but that actually has like a track record. And reality doesn't really fit an ideology exactly, and if it does, you're probably getting fed a load of crock there. But a whole lot more we'll get to there. Kevin Williams also saying the problem with Beto falls in line with the Democrat Party campaigning for the DNC national platform, and not even a Democrat of Texas platform. I'd see some modifications here locally, and he has, of course, made that slight move away. If you buy it or not, that's entirely up to your prerogative to decide for yourself, of the whole hell yes comment, that infamous one, and whether or not that's actually going to hold true. If you believe it, well, we'll take some calls on that. Again, we've got that phone line open, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. Right now, we do have Ben on the east side here with us right now. Ben, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how you doing, Andrew?
Oh, doing all right. Thanks for asking. What's on your mind?
Glad to see that you're well now.
Yeah.
Two things that I thought were kind of interesting today. It just came out today that 91 nursing homes in Wisconsin had between 100 and 95% turnout for the 2020 election. And Mark Zuckerberg gave $8.8 million to that effort to get a turnout in Wisconsin. People in nursing homes, normally, a lot of them don't really have the capacity to decide who to vote for and everything. I mean, they say 67% is probably a good turnout, but 95 to 100%, kind of interesting. The other thing, did you see the comments about Kamala Harris and how she explained what was happening in Ukraine and Russia?
I mean, I've seen a lot of comments. Were there some specific ones that you were wanting to point out?
Yeah, it's a video that came out, and she was talking. Somebody was asking her to explain what was going on in Ukraine and Russia's conflict, and she said, "Well, you got to look at it this way: Ukraine is a European nation. Okay, I think she said it's a country in Europe, and it's a small country, and then we have a larger country, Russia, and Russia, the larger country, invaded the smaller country." That was her explanation of what was happening in Ukraine.
I mean, not technically incorrect, but not technically incorrect, but not exactly kind of a nuanced thing you'd hope to see from top leadership here.
My point is that is a 4-year-old's explanation of what's going on in Ukraine. That's what she said was happening. Okay, a 4-year-old you would sit there, and then she said about the sanctions, and the sanctions are sort of like, if you have a child that's misbehaving, you've got to take away some of his goodies, I guess. And this is not the way that she said it, but it was sort of like this. And so it's like a child that is misbehaving, so you have to do something about it.
Again, I would prefer a higher level of discourse from it here, but at least we're talking about it, I guess, even if some other points being brought up here, like RJ over on the YouTube page here saying we're buying oil from Russia and talking about severe sanctions, and there, of course, has been a lot of pushback on that to stop that, but, of course, the bottom might fall out of the whole energy supply if that were to happen in our current situation, and hindsight being what it is, it could probably be just a little bit better positioned.
Andrew, you're missing my point.
Sure.
This woman is an idiot. This is how she explains things on the national stage when asked questions. She's talking. Either she thinks she's talking to 4-year-olds, in which case she has no respect for the American people, or she is giving an explanation that a 4-year-old would give. I understand that one.
Yeah, no, I get to what the point you're making there is. Again, I'm not going to go quite as far as to do the name calling there, but again, I would very much prefer to see a higher level of discourse out of our, top elected officials when it comes to describing the situations, unless there's some kind of op involved with it, saying, let's juxtapose this with the video I did see coming out from the Belarusian president playing, it looked like more or less the entire battle plan for there. So I guess there's extremes here, and I'd like it to be somewhere closer to the middle here. But yeah, it was, there have been a lot of comments that have come out, and comments and videos, particularly from even during the State of the Union speech, during one of those apparent gaffes here, doing some mouthing and correcting of it here, watching all of that going on. Yeah, not ideal by any means, and hopefully we get, better class and caliber the next time we have that option there when it comes to that. I've got to take another call here. Thank you for the point in the call. We do have some other calls in line here I want to get to before the end of the show. Again, the number to do so, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We got a call on the line here. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
Yes, Andrew. Harry the horse.
Hey there, Harry. What's on your mind?
I don't want to get personal, but I just want to tell you that the Saturday morning history show with you and Melissa are interesting, and the people in this town should be listening Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And that's just my opinion on that.
Fair enough.
What I want to do, Andrew, is I want to counter Real. And as I said previously, he presents himself well. I don't agree with the thing he says. Let me counter with, in my opinion, these are the facts. And I learned that by listening to talk radio that, in my opinion, and the free speech kind of protects me here. Okay.
Sure.
What happened? China waited to be sure that Biden was going to be the Democratic guy that was running, i.e., the fix was started to get Biden elected. Now, I know that that's going to take years to prove that, but it will come up, and I guarantee you, Biden did not get elected legally. Now, the facts proven, Biden and his son were both beholden to Russia and China. Thus, the downfall of our country has started and is continuing to include many other countries. And as I said previously, the November election, we won't make it to November, in my opinion. I feel bad things will take place before the election. And also, my last comment is, again, Biden politically could have and otherwise prevented all this going on in Ukraine. And I'm convinced that you have to believe that Trump would not have got into this situation. So therefore, I'm asking is who is going to be responsible for all of the death that is going on?
I mean, the death that is going on, particularly in Ukraine, I believe you're referring to there, put squarely at the feet of Vladimir Putin and no one else. Whether or not there could have been more preventative efforts, I mean, I think the best analysis that I've seen when it comes out to administration over administration and the response is that the previous one was a bit more of a wild card in case of what would be considered. I mean, let's just say some of the targetings and some of the military actions that were taken around the world, definitely not in exactly the expected playbook. And so whether that could have been something countered for by any other opposition, don't know if that would have actually been possible. But more specifically to your point here, I mean, yeah, should things maybe been a bit stronger before this point, moving more weapons and support and not this kind of, last minute, last ditch effort in order to support Ukraine? Absolutely. Hindsight is often even better than 2020 in my experience. But again, I put all of this squarely at Vladimir Putin and do think we should be doing more against that. The finally adding of the SWIFT system removals and the banking, essentially them not going to be able to do banking within Russia to a very large extent. Probably should have been looked at before this point, but we are where we are now. But I put that all solely and entirely on Vladimir Putin and whatever his calculation is, even if there are a lot more part of it. Anyway, do appreciate the point in the call. And what I will say is, to your first point there about the information and irregularities, I certainly hope it all does come out, but I don't think I'm totally on board with all of the expectations. And I reject the black pill on the idea that we won't make it to November. I think we will, because I think this country is stronger, even if it has as almost more divided levels than ever before here. All right, we got to take that last break of the hour here right now. We will squeeze in, and yes, a question coming in over on the Twitch page. This is live. Thank you for that question here. We got to get to that break and then take a couple more calls. You're listening to Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. That number to call, we'll squeeze it in, 915-544-5876, 544 KTSM. Back out this break with more.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Checking your El Paso freeways, Paisano Drive eastbound at the 110 southbound. There's an injury accident with police and EMS on the scene. I-10 eastbound between Dallas and Patriot Freeway. You're looking at an 8-minute delay. An accident reported Zaragoza and Tierra Este, and an injury accident in Alabama and Broadus Avenue. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by WhatsApp. No one should read your personal messages. That's why WhatsApp uses end-to-end encryption. It protects whatever you send before, during, and after you send it. So no one, not even WhatsApp, can read your messages. Always message privately. WhatsApp.
The Ridiculous Crime Podcast proves that true crime isn't always about mayhem and murder. Sometimes it's just silly. Take a deep dive into the absurd side of criminality with tales of stupid capers and idiotic cons that are 99% murder-free and 100% ridiculous.
16-year-old Max Wade decides to steal the yellow and black Lamborghini Gallardo Spider. The owner, you know him as Guy Fieri.
Listen to Ridiculous Crime on the iHeartRadio app or wherever you get your podcasts.
Mass Mutual knows that your finances can be an uncomfortable conversation.
Mark, we should really talk about our money.
Yep, we really should.
Like we never talk about our savings.
No, we never talk about that. Or our assets.
Or our debt.
Yeah, we really should talk about our debt.
We need one of those financial plans.
One of those will make a difference.
We should talk about it.
We really should.
Talk to us about financial wellness today. Feel comfortable about tomorrow. Mass Mutual. Live Mutual.
How many of you have pets? Now think about how lucky you are to have such a sweet little pet in your life. But unfortunately, there are countless pets out there that don't have a home to call their own. However, Bob's from Skechers is trying to change that. With every purchase of adorable Bob's footwear, apparel, or pet accessories, Skechers makes a donation to Petco Love. And with your help, we've already saved the lives of over 1 million pets and donated over $7 million. Find Bob's at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, select Petco locations, or wherever stylish footwear is sold.
More than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's, with more than 11 million family members and friends serving as caregivers. The toll of the disease is monumental, and no one should face Alzheimer's or dementia by themselves. Free help is available 24/7. For resources and support, visit the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. or call the helpline at 800-272-3900. You are not alone.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. Again, towards the end of our show here, we're going to take at least another call or so. But some of the things we're working on, particularly for next week, we are going to be having on some of those, candidates that were not contended on this ballot, but are going to be on the November ballot, or at least one that is hoping to be on the November ballot. You may recall that we had some conversation going on with some of our other candidates, those that now have an interesting process to go through. Detail all that goes coming up for you next week as well. A lot of interesting comments coming in here. Gabe at the house saying he's called us previously. Welcome to do so. Getting towards the end here of this show, but we'll certainly take more in future shows as we do. Al George asking if Russia can't bank, how do we pay for them for all this oil every day? Oh, it wasn't all banks, mind you. They've been targeting them specifically, so I'm sure the checks are clearing and the oil still getting delivered for now, till we see. Diana Sanchez making an interesting point here, saying Beto is persistent. Someone else was persistent. He's sleeping in the White House now, so maybe a little bit of support there. I mean, you did have a pretty well lock on that primary ballot. How that comes out in the, actual November election, that's going to be the story of the rest of this year, essentially. So a lot of comments coming in there, and a lot of things. Ion Grimm also commenting out there, still putting the text of that comment coming out of the vice president, I think, being mentioned there. Whole lot to get to, and we are almost out of time here for this show. So we'll try to take another call here or two. I believe we had Jerry in the Northwest. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This is Jerry. My phone bumped and it shut down on me.
Oh, we got you there, Jerry.
Cheap phone.
Absolutely. What's on your mind?
Well, I just wanted to answer to Ben. Ben, that's how Kamala has to explain it to the president, at a fourth grade level. Or a 4-year-old level, 4-year-old level. So that's the way it goes. I mean, you get what you pay for.
I mean, that is absolutely true. I mean, if it's worth paying for, it's worth paying the right amount for. But I would like a higher level of discourse. But I mean, there's some discussion going on that in our comments. Absolutely.
Okay, sir. You have a good day.
Oh, you too. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it here. We also do take those pound 250 calls if you got a burning thought or question in between our shows here, because we are live 4 to 6 p.m., but that leaves a lot of hours of the day that we're not up here. So if you're wanting to leave your own question, comment, or concern, that way. You can do that by dialing pound 250 on your phone, saying the keyword Talk El Paso when prompted, and you can leave your own message, much like this.
This is Messiah Frankie. I want to share with you how excited I am. Share with you a fact of life out there, ladies and gentlemen in the Southport West Border region. There is no such thing as a liberal tyrant, a liberal autocrat, or a liberal dictator. By nature of their very existence, are conservatives, a.k.a. kooks. Just like your boy Donnie Dotard, who thinks Putin is savvy and a genius. What kind of a creep are you people supporting? You're off the wall. You're nut jobs. You're nothing. You're not Americans. You're some kind of a new breed of communists, for crying out loud, you morons.
So let's just, again, if you want to leave your own message, pound 250, say the keyword Talk El Paso. So let's break that down there. If we're saying that there is no such thing as a liberal, or shall we say left-wing dictator or tyrant, you literally just mentioned that standpoint at the end. The Communist Party of Russia is headed up for the longest time, of course, by, the Iron Man Joseph Stalin and everything that came with him. I didn't exactly peg you for a tanky out there, Frankie, saying that, he did nothing wrong. If you think that there is absolutely no chance that the people you agree with could ever become tyrants and that the people on the other side can only be tyrants, you're kind of missing the point that tyranny is apolitical. Anyone given too much power often will find themselves using and eventually abusing that power. I mean, heck, you look at, Lukashenko in Belarus or any of the other, it falls flat with me at the very least. And I think a lot of comments coming in here for all of that. We'll have to leave it almost there for today. But let me just say this. Having the discussion about this is very important to me because I think that's the idea that everyone that agrees with you, or at least everyone you see on social media agrees with you, is a very strong and important misnomer to dispel out there. There's a whole lot more to discuss here, and we got a whole lot more of it coming up for you. We got more elections analysis and such, and what those races are, plus more of the debate about what these policies are that we really need to get into and talk about what's important to us here. But that will have to do it here for us today. If you want to leave a comment there, you're more than welcome to. But otherwise, we'll have to do it again tomorrow, 4 to 6 p.m., as we do here on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank everyone who did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show. You all are really what helped make the show what it is as we continue our mission to debate the issues that affect us here, because no one else is going to talk about it the way we do. So stay safe out there. Look twice for motorcycles when you're out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll do it again tomorrow. See ya.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
It's slow on the 10 eastbound between Dallas and the 54 Patriot with 8-minute delays. Police and medical still on the scene of that earlier injury accident eastbound Paisano at the 110 southbound. Fort Boulevard, just west of Copia at Justice Street, an accident there. And Zaragoza at Tierra Este. Police are arriving at that accident. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
What's done more to improve overall health and wellness? Modern medicine or personal hygiene? Actually, it's both. But considering that bathing went mainstream in the 1800s and brushing your teeth in the 1900s, isn't it time for something new, like cleaning your nose? After all, your nose is the body's air filter for trapping dirt and germs, the first line of defense against allergens, bacteria, and viruses from getting into your lungs. But how do you clean your nose? With Navage. Navage isn't medicine, it's more like plumbing. Navage uses powered suction to pull saline in one nostril to the very back of the nose where germs can get trapped and multiply, and then out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and microbes so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and stay healthier. Join over 2 million others and find out for yourself how refreshing and easy to use Navage is. At Navage.com, Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Bed Bath, and Target. Navage. Clean nose, healthy life.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Freedom of speech lives here.
To me, freedom of speech is being able to say anything you want.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
What does the sound of a school bell bring to mind? Homeroom? Lunchtime? The day's end? Or the end of school entirely? as in kids dropping out. At Communities in Schools, we work directly inside schools to help those students whose ability to come to school is often jeopardized by hardships, the loss of a loved one, poverty, lack of housing, or bullying. Hear from a few students whose lives we have touched.
They've always had my back. They've always done anything to help me.
At Communities in Schools, we empower students to succeed in and out of the classroom.
They've been there for when I've had any questions, any problems personally. Anytime